Hello everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome and welcome to the 18th episode of my special segment on my channel for 2019, 007, A Bondiful Year. And this time around, we're going to be talking about the fact that James Bond is now officially back in full force thanks to GoldenEye in 1995, and he is truly a force to be reckoned with. The action sequences are much more intense, there's definitely more epicness and grandeur to James Bond adventures, and it's great to finally see him after a couple of years not really having much of a relevancy compared to other action movies of the time. Now that he's officially back with these amazing action-filled films, it is really nice to know that James Bond was officially relevant again, especially after being on the big screen for almost 4 decades. So this time we're going to be looking at the 1997 film Tomorrow Never Dies, which once again has Pierce Brosnan as James Bond, and we also have Jonathan Pryce, Michelle Yeoh, Terry Hatcher, and once again Samantha Bond and Judi Dench return as Moneypenny and M. But one of the things that I forgot to mention was the fact that since the very beginning, there has been one specific character that had still not been going through his own changing of the guard, and that was Desmond Llewellyn as the original Q, who had been in the James Bond franchise since 1963's From Russia with Love, and it is just so amazing to know that he was still attached to these films all the way into the late 1990s. And also, I love the rapport that he has with this specific James Bond, because it's not so much of a best friend kind of deal, it's more so of an older brother constantly nagging on his younger brother because he keeps screwing up. And I just really appreciated the fact that Desmond Llewellyn got this little bit of a personality change, even though he did always say, "Will you please bring the car back in one piece?" I just really appreciate the banter that the two of these characters have, especially when Q is showing James Bond all the new inventions that he'll be taking on his mission. We also had a very solemn farewell. Albert Broccoli, who was the executive producer of the James Bond film franchise since the very beginning, this was the first James Bond film that didn't have him attached as producer because he had passed away the year prior. To know that this specific man was attached to all of these James Bond films was such an accomplishment, and it was just amazing to know that he was still there till the very end as far as he could go. So in this James Bond film, James Bond gets enveloped in a battle between himself and a media mogul named Elliot Carver, who is played by the great Jonathan Pryce. And this guy is not only someone that wants to be the best media mogul out there, he wants to basically control everything in terms of news and entertainment, and he just wants to use this power that he has to be an omnipotent person, even if it means creating news, even trying to start a war between the United Kingdom and China. It sounds a lot like what's happening today when it comes to media these days, don't you agree? So James Bond now finds out that this guy is trying to do these kinds of things, and he wants to prevent all of these possible conflicts from happening. And one of the ways that he is able to actually get close to Elliot Carver is through one of his ex-lovers, who is named Paris, who is played by Terry Hatcher. One of the few things that I never would have anticipated was to see Terry Hatcher in a James Bond film. I mean, Terry Hatcher at the time was popular thanks to shows like Lois and Clark. She hadn't gone on to what she was known famously for in Desperate Housewives at the time, but just knowing that she was attached was quite impressive. And Michelle Yeoh, who was at the time gonna be known for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, we now know her as the mother in Crazy Rich Asians, but she getting attached to a James Bond film was also pretty damn interesting. We also have a very good opening song from the great Sheryl Crow, and we also have another great composer, David Arnold, attached to this movie. And the one thing that I really like about David Arnold's score pieces is the fact that he really tries to envelop the classic James Bond sound in his composership. Unlike Eric Serra or Billy Conti, who came before him, they really tried to make something that was their own, with a couple of nods to the James Bond score. But David Arnold really tries to take John Barry's James Bond's work and put it into his own score pieces, and it definitely is a really nice homage to the classic score. But one of the few things that I will say about this movie is, it is not the best James Bond film in the franchise. One of the few things that a lot of people said was after GoldenEye, it was really sad to see the follow-up James Bond films with Pierce Brosnan not really hit that high note that GoldenEye had. Now, don't get me wrong, the characters are pretty good. I think that Jonathan Pryce really had fun being the villain in this movie. Just with the evil grin on his face and the power-hungry attitude, you could definitely tell that he was having a ton of fun playing this villain role. Very similar to Christopher Walken in A View to a Kill. But one of the things that I will definitely say that was very positive about this movie was this was probably the funniest James Bond film that I ever saw. There were a lot of times where I actually found myself laughing out loud. Like the jokes that James Bond makes in the opening sequence, to the part where he's actually trying to avoid all of these bad guys while he's sitting in the backseat of his car and driving his car with a remote control, which was so funny. Also, the car talking was really funny as well. But also the action sequence in the motorcycle chase where he and Michelle Yeoh's character are handcuffed together and they're trying to switch sides, switch positions to make sure that they don't lose control of the motorcycle and trying to get rid of the baddies on their tail. I just really appreciated their banter during those action sequences. But unfortunately, the story itself is probably just one of the so-so stories. It's nothing truly exciting, and even though I have said that they are very epic films in this era, this one in particular doesn't really seem so epic. We also have a henchman named Stamper who is definitely one of those strong silent types, and when he does speak, he does have some very funny and very scary moments, but he also is not really one of the more strong henchmen in the James Bond lore, and it's just because of these faults, because they're pretty big faults when it comes to trying to get an overall good James Bond movie under your belt. This one just doesn't seem to have those great accolades that GoldenEye had. But I will still say that this is one of the films that you will probably have the most fun with, just because of all of those really fun moments that you have. Pierce Brosnan, if there's anything positive that I could say about him as James Bond, is that he really is a good character. I love his chemistry with every cast member that he has, whether it's a hero, a villain, or even when he's having his banter with M. It's just really great when he is on screen playing James Bond. But, like I said, not the strongest James Bond film, but Tomorrow Never Dies is still one of the more fun watches that I've had, which is why I will be giving Tomorrow Never Dies an admirable 2.5 stars out of 4. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave a comment in the box below and let's discuss Tomorrow Never Dies, and I will see you in the next episode. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.